Draft day trades. To me, that's the most exciting part of the draft. In most situations, we all have a general idea of who's getting drafted at what spots, but trades on draft day are very surprising and they usually come out of nowhere. Sometimes, draft day trades can have a huge impact on the entire NBA for years to come. How's it going, ladies and gents? My name's Andy, and today we're going to take a look at the 5 biggest draft day trades that changed the NBA forever. Number 5. 1998, the Mavericks trade Robert Tractor Traylor for Dirk Nowitzki and Steve Nash. In the 1990s, the Dallas Mavericks were struggling for basically the entire decade. Between 1991 and 1999, they won more than 30 games in just one season. And their draft picks over the years were underperforming, so they needed somebody to lift the team back on its feet. They needed a franchise player. In the 1998 draft, they found exactly that, and more. They had the 6th pick, which they used to draft Robert Tractor Traylor, but then immediately traded him to the Milwaukee Bucks, in exchange for Dirk Nowitzki and Pat Garrity. Then they traded Garrity to Phoenix for Steve Nash. The Mavericks were able to add Nowitzki and Nash to a team that already had a promising shooting guard in Michael Finley, and the three of them formed a new Big Three in Dallas. The Mavericks were consistently winning over 50 games a season with those three leading the way, and although Nash and Finley would eventually leave in the mid-2000s, Nowitzki carried them to even greater heights. As I'm sure everybody knows, he led the Mavs to the finals in 2006, won the MVP in 2007, and led them to a championship in 2011. All while turning himself into one of the greatest players of all time and a consistent top 5 or top 10 player in his prime. On the other hand, Robert Tractor Traylor became a bust. Well, I guess that's a bit harsh. During his 7 seasons in the NBA, he suffered through a lot of injuries and struggled maintaining a healthy weight. In his 2 seasons with the Bucks, he averaged 4.5 points and 3 rebounds a game in limited minutes. And after that, he would get traded a couple of times and was primarily a backup center. In 2005, Traylor got surgery on his aorta, which is the artery that pumps blood away from the heart. But unfortunately, he couldn't pass the physical, so he was forced to retire from the NBA. He played overseas for a couple of years, but in 2011, he got a heart attack and passed away at the early age of 34. Number 4, 1980. The Celtics trade the number 1 and number 13 pick to the Warriors for the number 3 pick and Robert Parish. In 1980, the Celtics front office was led by Red Auerbach, arguably the greatest basketball mind in NBA history. The team held the number 1 and number 13 pick in the 1980 draft, which is pretty crazy considering the team won 61 games in the previous season. Auerbach traded those 2 picks for Robert Parish and the number 3 pick, which they used to draft Kevin McHale. This created a Celtics dynasty, giving Larry Bird the help he needed to dominate and take over the league. McHale became a 7-time All-Star, 2-time 6th Man of the Year, and a 6-time All-Defender. Robert Parish would instantly become an All-Star with the Celtics and have his best seasons of his career. Both of them would stay on the team for over a decade and were always key pieces in their championship years. In fact, the Celtics won the championship in their first year together. On the other hand, the Warriors got the bad end of the deal. With the number 1 pick, they drafted Barry Carroll, who had a couple of good seasons with Golden State, but in general, the team didn't do well in the 1980s. In the middle of his prime, he even left the NBA to go play in Italy because he just didn't like playing for the Warriors. The fans didn't like him either because they felt like he had all the talent in the world but he barely tried. That got him the nickname Joe Barely Cares. He would return to the team a year later, but all the love was gone. After 6 years, the Warriors traded him to the Rockets for Ralph Sampson, but this was the Ralph Sampson after all the foot injuries, so he wasn't good anymore. Oh, and with the 13th pick they also got from Boston, they used it to draft Rickey Brown, who was a bench warmer and didn't do much. This trade kinda reminds me of the Markelle Fultz for Jason Tatum trade because the Celtics gave up the number 1 pick to move down to number 3. But it's way too early to decide who will become the better player. Number 3, 1987. Seattle trades Scottie Pippen to the Bulls. Remember how great the Supersonics were in the 90s with Gary Payton, Shawn Kemp, Detlef Schrempf? Now imagine if you added Scottie Pippen to that team. An extra ball handler, playmaker, and strong defender at the wing who would have been exactly what that Sonics team needed. They had multiple 60-win seasons, but they could never break through. If they had Scottie Pippen though, they would have won a couple of championships in that era. Unfortunately for them, that didn't happen. In the 1987 draft, the Bulls drafted Olden Polynice with the 8th overall pick and then immediately packaged him in a deal to get Scottie Pippen. This is what the full trade looked like. Pippen would develop into the perfect partner for MJ, arguably the greatest duo of all time. 6 championships speaks for themselves. During Pippen's Hall of Fame speech, Bulls owner Jerry Reinsdorf said, "We were sure we were going to be able to get Scottie where we were in the draft. Then Scottie went to the pre-draft camps, lit it up, and got everybody's attention. We went into panic mode because we realized he wouldn't be there when we were going to draft. We somehow had to move up and we were able to pull it off." At the time of the trade, Bulls coach Doug Collins said, "We can't always depend on Michael Jordan to score. We have to increase our speed and quickness and score easy baskets off the fast break." Of course, we all know how great Scottie was. 7-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA, 10-time All-Defense, and it's a crime that he never won a single Defensive Player of the Year. But he was the guy who took pressure off of MJ offensively and defensively and gave him the help he needed to win. But for the Sonics, what happened there? Well, they got Olden Polynice in return, and he didn't do so well. After 3.5 seasons as a backup center, the Sonics traded him away, and that was pretty much it. Number 2, 1996, the Hornets trade Kobe Bryant to the Lakers. Yeah, I'm sure we've all heard about this before, but the context behind the trade was a bit strange. Some have speculated that Kobe's agent at the time, Arn Tellem, tried to strong-arm his way to get Kobe to Los Angeles. The reasons were obvious. LA was a way bigger market than Charlotte, and Kobe would have gotten a lot more exposure, a lot more fame, and a lot more endorsements. Turns out, all of those things were true. If Kobe played in Charlotte, he wouldn't get nearly as much recognition. Jerry West, who was the GM, also might have played a role in getting Kobe to LA because he loved him during his workouts, and tried to prevent him from going to other pre-draft workouts for other teams. However, according to Kobe himself, he didn't deny that any of this was false, but he did say that, "Charlotte never wanted me. Coach Dave Cowens told me he didn't want me. It wasn't a question of me even playing here. They had a couple of guards already, a couple of small forwards already, so it wasn't like I would be off the bench much." That definitely makes sense. If you go back and look at the 1996 Hornets roster, they were a well-established playoff team with a lot of veterans and players over 30 years old. I doubt Kobe would have gotten that much playing time behind Glenn Rice and Del Curry. Anyway, looking at the other side of the trade, the Hornets received Vlade Divac, who stayed there for 2 seasons and averaged 12 points and 9 rebounds a game. He helped them win 50-plus games in both seasons, but in 1998, he would sign with the Sacramento Kings. Obviously, in hindsight, this was terrible for the Hornets as they let go the second greatest shooting guard of all time. But nobody predicted Kobe would become that. If they did, he wouldn't have gone 13th in the draft. I also think in the early 2000s, with guys like Kobe and Kevin Garnett dominating the league, it prompted more teams to take a chance at drafting high school players at the top of the draft. It didn't work out in some years, but it worked out pretty well in others. And number 1, 1956, Bill Russell gets traded to the Celtics. So here are the full details of the trade. Celtics coach Red Auerbach was looking for somebody with more toughness. They needed a rebounder and a defensive presence in the paints. At the time, the perception of Russell was kinda mixed, because in the 50s, everybody believed that the only way players can dominate a game is on offense. So how much of a difference can Russell actually make? Even before the 1956 draft, he was never deemed as a great offensive player, but Auerbach saw something in him that nobody else saw. However, it was hard to acquire him. They already used their territorial pick, which was a pick that let teams draft a local player in their area, and the Celtics used it to get Tommy Heinsohn. So with no picks left, Auerbach started to pull some strings. The Rochester Royals had the first pick, but Auerbach called the owner of the Royals, hoping to make them pass on Russell. He offered the Royals a show from the Ice Capades, which was a group of traveling ice skaters who put on performances across the country. Additionally, the Royals already had a dominant rebounder in Maurice Stokes, so they didn't need Russell anyway. So instead, they took Hugo Green with the number 1 pick. Next up, Auerbach realized that the St. Louis Hawks were going to draft Russell with the number 2 pick. So that's where he offered a trade. He traded future Hall of Famers Ed McCauley and Cliff Hagan to the Hawks for Russell, finally getting the player he wanted. Russell made an immediate impact on the Celtics, and the rest is history. Teammate Bob Cousy has stated that his will to win made the difference. He did not have the all-around skills of guys like Wilt or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but with his intensity, he raised himself to a level above both of them. Russell's impact on the game goes beyond the box score. His intangibles and attitude separated him from everybody else, and he used it to positively influence his teammates and everybody around him. Additionally, he was a great ambassador for the sport. During a time when racism was rampant, Russell sought to change that. He became a spokesman that all players should be treated with respect, it doesn't matter who they are or where they're from. It was a tough time to speak up about that, and in Boston of all places, which was not exactly known for its impartiality. He also broke the barrier in 1966, becoming the first African-American coach in NBA history, and although his time in Boston had some controversial moments, there's no doubt that he walked away from the game as the greatest winner of all time. And that's all, folks. Those were what I believe are the 5 biggest draft day trades that changed the NBA forever. Let me know if you have any other draft day trades that heavily impacted the league. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.